What's up, YouTube? This is Sean, the average angler. Today we're going to talk about how to break down a lake, or how to learn a lake. And we're going to talk about Lake Berryessa in Northern California. It's a great lake. It's not overly large, but it does need to be broken down into several sections. 3 in particular, in my mind. Now, Berryessa has all 3 species: spotted bass, smallmouth bass, and largemouth bass, and the 4th being the meanmouth, if you really want to count them. I personally prefer to just say 3. Got my coffee this morning. Now, we could just end up going out with an open mind and fish one end of the lake to the other. Problem with doing that is we don't really have the time to explore and get a feel for what the fish are doing, or more so, what the different sections of the lake are about. So what I like to do when fishing a new lake, or even a lake I'm really trying to learn better, is break it down. We have the north end, say from the Big Island north. We have the middle section, which we'll say from the Big Island down to the Narrows, and then all the stuff south of the Narrows. So what I would suggest, and what I do, is I look for the smallest area that offers the biggest variety. Creeks, flats, deep water, steep stuff, long tapering points, steep chunky rock. And to me, the middle part of the lake has all of this. You have the walls outside of Skiers Cove. You got creeks back over in Capel Cove. There's a creek coming in the back of Skiers Cove. And there's other minor creeks in the area coming into some of the back of those coves. You also have the flats on the east bank over there. Not the vineyards, way south of there, but there are some flats over there. You also have a lot of flats over behind the Big Island area. Behind, I don't know, to the side, back in there where the sheriff's department's at. And there's also some over by Capel Cove, but before you go in through the narrow entrance. And there's long tapering points all over the place. This just offers you a good variety of things to try and figure out what the fish are doing without having to spend too much time running around. It also allows you to find some of the smaller intricacies within those areas. And it's how I discover things like small rock piles, or a small rock pile on a ledge or a drop off. Things that are going to hold the fish, and not just now, but year round oftentimes, depending on the depth. And it gives us more fishing time. We don't spend as much money running around in gas. And to learn a lake, to me, this is the best way. Now, this time of year, we're coming up, what is it? It's middle of January, latter part of January 18th. Which is good, because I really like February. I think February is where those big girls really start to show themselves a little bit more. And the opportunity for that fish of a lifetime is near and dear to my heart. Most of my, or not most, a lot of my biggest fish I've ever caught have come in February. Now, where would I start? Long tapering points. Because I can fish shallow, I can fish slow sloping, usually off the sides of them. One side or the other will drop off fairly quick. and I can fish from 0 to 40, 50 feet on one spot. I'm not as concerned about bait fish right now, because those fish are going to start transitioning. The fish I want to catch are going to start transitioning, and that being the females, into eating craws, and the bigger fish, the trout, young year class fish from last year. Those females are not going to want to chase around little tiny bait fish. Not saying you won't catch fish doing that, because the spotted bass and the smallmouth are still going to be on that kind of stuff. Although the bigger ones will also start transitioning to bigger baits, jigs, bigger worms, Senkos, swim baits, bigger swim baits. Not necessarily the 10-inch stuff, but those will get bit. It's a good time to be throwing them. But I'm talking about anything like, say, a Kitech 4.8 and up. I tend to like to throw the bigger Kitechs as a single bait anyway. Mostly because so many people throw the smaller stuff. Now, that's where I would start. And what types of baits would I use? Well, I mentioned a jig. A jig is definitely going to be there. A crankbait. And I'm going to kind of base the crankbait on the activity level I'm seeing, meaning the depth. How deep are the fish? Am I seeing fish in 10, 12 feet? Are they down deeper than that? Part of that's going to depend on the weather. And this week we have really good weather. It's very, very stable, no wind. It kind of sucks because we need the rain. We need a lot of rain still. But it's good for going out and fishing. So I'd probably have a square bill. And then I would have something in that medium depth. Something that's going to run down up to maybe 15, 16 foot. Maybe something like a DD22. That's going to run a little bit deeper depending on line size. And I'm going to throw it in red. Craw colors. Even a watermelon craw pattern type Norman or something. If the wind's blowing, which it's not forecast to, I'm definitely going to have a spinnerbait tied on, or a chatterbait. A swim jig. Got to have a drop shot at Berryessa. And the Senko, Neko rig Senko, Neko rig worm, whatever you prefer. And then the A-rig. And an underspin. I'm just going to kind of pick up those baits depending on where I'm looking for the fish, where I'm seeing activity. I'm going to vary those baits and figure out what's working. And I'm going to kind of move around. I'm going to move around from those long tapering points. I'm going to try some steeper walls until I figure out where those fish are at. So you can pick an area inside of this bigger area to try and figure out what the bite is and the depth they're at. It's the big island area has pretty much everything over there. Very simple to go in there and try to figure out what kind of stuff are the fish holding on. Do they want the bait moving? Do they want the bait slow? And then you can kind of run around within that area and try and duplicate your pattern. But breaking down the lake really allows us more time to learn. And I've spent, this can take a lot of time still, because I really want to learn the in-depth shit. I want to know everything I can about those areas. I want to find the little rock piles. I want to find the little drop-offs. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff. I'm talking about the stuff not every other person knows about. There's stuff out there that when people drive by, they go, what the hell is that guy fishing way out there? That's the kind of stuff we want to find. That's the kind of stuff that's going to produce for us day in, day out, and you got to find the right angle. The angle can be all the difference in the world. You find this hump out there, this drop off out there, and you may see fish up there and they may not bite. You got to move around, change the angle. All of a sudden you get in one angle, pull that bait out, pop it up, drops off, bam, you got that fish on. And it's all about the angle. So breaking down the lake, I like this area too because it offers everything. Bigger fish for one. My biggest spot on Berryessa was a 682 I caught out of this section of the lake. My biggest largemouth I caught out of this section of the lake, which was a 9-pounder. My biggest smallmouth, which was a 5.5-pounder, came out of this part of the lake. There's a lot of forage in there, a lot of trout, a lot of the kokanee hang around these areas. It's just a great place to learn. Not saying this is where the majority of tournaments are going to be won. I think the majority of the tournaments are won up in the north end of the lake. Not necessarily in January though. I think next month that stuff will really start to kick off. Depending on water levels, the vineyards can be a player. I think right now it's a little bit too low, but we'll see what happens. You never write an area off. Anyway, down in the Narrows, if you just want to catch fish, I say go down in the Narrows. Huge spotted bass population. There's plenty of largemouth down there. I don't catch as many smallmouth down in the Narrows for some reason or another, and maybe that's because of the spotted bass. I don't hear of too many tournaments being won down in that area. Not to say you can't, because I believe there's 10+ pounders all over that lake. I believe there's a world record in that lake. The forage base that's there, it just supports that kind of fish. Just the Narrows, and I've fished down there. I've won big fish plaques down there. But the average size of fish is better out on the main lake. So we'll get more into breaking down some stuff. I'm gonna go out to Berry on Thursday. I will do a report. I'll do some on the lake stuff as well. Berryessa is a great lake to break down. It's a great lake to learn on, and it will transfer to most of the other lakes in Northern California. The Delta being the only thing different. But, the Delta is the Delta. But it does transfer to everywhere else. Oroville, Shasta, Clear Lake, Malones, Don Pedro. Break down the lake in a section. Learn it. Spend a lot of time learning it. It will pay off. It's what I did to learn Clear Lake, and Clear Lake is somewhere that I have the utmost confidence that I can go out and be successful, because I spent so many hours learning about the terrain and the fish, and when I find them on something, I've got 200 waypoints with that kind of stuff that I can go and run. So if you got something out of this, like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And until the next one, this is Sean with The Average Angler. Oh, and be sure and check out rbbassfishing.net. Lots of reports there, keep you up to date. If you're just going to take the kid out for the weekend or something, look, there's oftentimes reports for Berryessa on there that are fairly recent. Till next time, tight lines.